The devs just dropped the new update. Disruptor's got a rework, some very important economy changes, and we got our first look at the 4.4 Pegasus update with a feature that players have been requesting for years, the ability to join wars mid-combat. So let's break it all down, starting with the preview because this is pretty much the headline, right? You can now join an ongoing war, not at the start but actually during the war while fleets are already fighting inclusively. Here's how it works. The join war option is a trade term you can offer to the leader of one side in a war. So you pick a side, you negotiate, and then you enter the conflict. You can also be recruited. A war leader can come looking for allies mid-war, but you probably want something in return, so you can ask for minerals, dark matter, whatever you can negotiate. The AI considers several factors when deciding whether to accept your offer or to invite you in. The distance to the war participants, whether the target is your rival, whether you have claims on their territory, and general diplomatic stuff. So don't expect to recruit a pacifist from across the galaxy to fight your neighbor, but a nearby rival of your enemy. Well, that will be very interesting. You can also invite allies during your initial war declaration, but this we could already do. Now here's the interesting part, leaving. To exit the war you have joined, you need to bribe the enemy war leader to let you out. They're not going to agree so easily, especially if they are winning. If they are losing on the other hand, they might accept just to simplify the fight and give them a better chance of winning. Your former allies will take an opinion hit, of course, for the betrayal, but sometimes cutting your losses or shifting your head to somewhere else is worth the diplomatic fallout, especially because you can improve relations later on. This, in my opinion, changes the entire diplomatic landscape of Stellaris, because now we must be a lot more careful with our relations, especially with our neighbors, since if both of them dislike us, there is a big chance they might join forces in a war. The same can be applied when already in a war. If we had bad relations with everybody, we can't even know for sure how many enemies we'll face, since other foes can join the war, turning the tides against us. On the other hand, if we have good relations, we can invite them. I know we could already do that in the beginning of the war, but this is different as we can give them some resources to push them just a little bit enough for them to join our war. Before, they will either join in the beginning, but if they decided that for some small reason, like, oh, I don't like this from you, they wouldn't join. There was nothing you can do. Now, oh, you don't like this? Okay, how about I give you 1000 dark matter? Oh, now you are willing to join us? Yeah, so this is why I think it's a pretty big deal. Now, there's another thing I want to see is how this pairs with proxy wars. Imagine, you use a proxy war between one ally and one rival from you. Then you ask your ally if you can join their war. The answer will probably be yes, right? But you're gonna have to see if there are limitations to things like truce periods or proxy wars, or some relaxations when it comes to rivals or crisis. Talking about disruptors, they got a significant buff. We covered how useless they were on 2 separate videos, so I'm glad the devs noticed. On hit, they now reduce the target's regeneration effectiveness for 10 days. A tier 1 minus 20% shield regeneration and minus 10% armor and hull. At tier 2 minus 35% and minus 20. Tier 3 minus 50 and minus 30. The psionics disruptors though, they get minus 35% shield regeneration and 20% ship fire rate. However, they stay on the anti-fire rate channel, so they stack with regular disruptors, meaning you could theoretically run psionic ones plus a tier 3 for a whopping minus 85% shield regen and minus 20% ship fire rate on top of minus 30% armor and the whole regen. That's very broken. This is a significant shift in what disruptors are for. They're no longer trying to be a damage weapon, because like I said, we covered how badly their damage falls in 4.3. Instead, they are now a support weapon. You bring a few disruptors to suppress enemy regeneration, while your main damage dealers, autocannons, plasma, kinetic artillery, they do the actual killing. I'm curious to see if the negative regeneration will cause damage to ships as a literal daily decrease. This will of course be very strong, but regeneration works as only 1% of what it shows during combat. So for instance, a minus 50% shield regen is actually a minus 0.5 shield regen during combat. The question is whether the regeneration suppression is worth the weapon slot compared to just bringing in more damage. In short fights where ships die quickly, probably not, but in extended battles against tanking fleets with high regeneration like Setana, this could matter a lot. I will need to test this more more before giving a definitive answer though. Now regarding the economy balance changes, the devs made specific resources a little more powerful. The Faculty of Article Studies got an increase from 0.1 to 0.25 minor artifacts from biologists on relic worlds. They also increased the minor artifact storage from 1000 to 2000. On top of that, the Article Engineering Ascension perk increases minor artifact production from 0.05 to 0.15 and storage from 2000 to 3000. So in total, you can produce 0.4 minor artifacts per 100 biologists with the specific Ascension perk, and this is a much welcome buff by the way, because since economy is much weaker and ships cost a lot more, fielding minor artifacts components were basically impossible outside of niche cases like nanites and nemesis ships, because they don't pay any extra resources, they just pay either nanites or minerals and they build whatever they want. Another specific resource that got a significant buff is astral threads. The devs are making the following adjustments. Astral thread production increased to 0.2, 0.35 and 0.5, almost double at the final tier from what they used to be. The astral physics bonus decreased to 0.2, 0.35 and 0.5, a 33% nerf at the final tier. Basically, you get the same amount of extra astral threads and astral physics from the building. The additional upkeep is reduced to +2 consumer goods and +4 energy or minerals at the final tier, half of what they used to be basically. Interestingly enough, the first tier didn't get an upkeep reduction. Astral thread storage per building doubled across all tiers, so it suffered the same problems as minor artifacts with the new economy, but they suffered even more due to the empire size changes. As all empires now have a large size later into the game, it becomes almost impossible to pay for the upkeep of astral edicts. Also, the physics research granted by the special building was so strong that physics was the quickest stack to finish by a mile. So yeah, the extra production of astral threads is very good, but the main benefit in my opinion here is the reduced upkeep, since we can't easily reduce researcher upkeep anymore. Another major buff is the astral thread storage, so you can store lots of them and activate the edicts only in times of need, as during a war. Thus, with the extra stockpile, you can keep the edicts running for years even if you are on negative production. Alloys and consumer goods got a minor buff with the Ministry of Production. Now it gives 0.2 of each of these resources for their respective jobs. It's not massive, but 0.1 was just so ridiculous that they had to buff it. Advanced Bioreactor got the same treatment, as it now produces 0.1 exotic gases instead of 0.05. Void Worms, on a final note, they got their fleet power adjusted so they don't look that scary. If you ran point defenses, you could easily take them down with like 5 times less firepower, since most of their weapons are missiles. If you destroy them, they can't hit you. Unless they are faster than you, then they can bite your ships. Now regarding some other changes, the Scourge missiles were dealing 5 times intended damage, same issue as the torpedo damage bug from earlier patches, but this is fixed now, so they are a little less scary as a crisis, and the AI got budget adjustment for alloys, food and influence. Let's see if that makes AI a little bit more competitive. In my thoughts, the Join War feature is the real story here. Everything else is solid maintenance work, bug fixes, number adjustments, the Disruptor rework giving them a new identity, but Join War fundamentally changes how wars play out in Stellaris for the first time in a very long time as well. The Disruptor rework is interesting, but I'm reserving judgment until I can test the regeneration suppression in actual fleet combat. The concept is sound, support weapon that weakens tanky enemies over time, but whether it's worth the weapon slot is a math question I can't answer from the patch notes alone. This small update is targeting release around the 16th, with more updates coming next week. I'll cover those as they drop. So that's the latest Dev Diary, Commanders, and before I go, I want to take a moment to thank every single one of you. We just crossed 10,000 subscribers, and honestly, we got here faster than I ever thought possible. That milestone really means a lot to me, and I don't take it granted, even so that I'm making a special video to celebrate, which should air this Saturday. So stay tuned for that, and as always, Commanders, I will see you guys next time.